Welcome, nerds, once again to the news. We have 2 episodes left, counting this for regular episodes this year, so let's get into those main headlines real quick. First up in music, we have 2 pretty significant updates from 2 frontrunners in the metal world. We have one of the most successful games in recent years just got an incredibly important sequel announcement. Comics section has a lot of Mike Baron and Joe Hill for some reason. Surprising update from The Boys spin-off series in TV streaming. Strange number of live-action Lego movies are being made. We're going to talk about that. And then in rumors, we have Sony's Venom movie series is maybe not ending if these rumors are true. So let's get into it. All right, so like I said in the main headlines, we have 2 updates from 2 of Metal's heavy hitters. Both of these are very highly anticipated for very different reasons, and we also, in major headlines, have the passing of a music legend that we must talk about, so let's get into music section. Okay, so like I said, we have 2 follow-ups to get to, the first of which, not going to beat around the bush, we're going straight into the As I Lay Dying stuff. We have update from Tim Lambesis finally has come out and addressed the losing of his band. It sounded like he took at least a little bit of responsibility for the situation, acknowledging that the environment has been toxic. I'm paraphrasing here. Acknowledging that the situation was less than stellar for the people involved, and also saying that he's going to try and create a better environment for the next lineup for the band, and going through and dropping the fact that throughout the life of this band, there have been over 20 members or something like that. And so just kind of, while almost like paying lip service to the idea that he's going to take responsibility for his actions, and then just saying this is the way it is kind of a little weird mixed message that seems like maybe he doesn't fully get the message, but I mean, it is his band, so, you know, that is kind of what it is. One interesting note that he made in here is that the genesis for everyone else leaving was the rift between him and Phil Segroso. And Phil's decision, according to Tim Lambesis, Phil's decision to leave was the first one, and then everyone else chose to leave around him. But if you go back and look at the chain of events, like, that's not the way this played out. Even if it was a delayed announcement from Phil, he didn't delay the announcement about the announcement. So we had Ken Suzy and I'm gonna forget all the other guys' names, and I apologize. Ryan Neff, and the other drummer guy. We had all these guys announce that they were leaving, and then we got the announcement that we were going to hear some sort of information from Phil Segroso after all of those announcements were already made. So presumably when he made the announcement that he was going to decide his future with As I Lay Dying, presumably that was the point in which he decided, okay, I think I'm going to be leaving, officially decided it. Because maybe he led, I mean, and this is totally giving Tim the benefit of the doubt, but maybe he made some sort of statement, or he let it be known that he was very unhappy and was very likely going to be leaving the band. And that's what, you know, pushed these other guys to go, all right, if Phil's not here, I'm not here. That's the most generous interpretation of this. Otherwise, it just sounds like Tim's trying to CYA and obfuscate and divert attention to other things. And yeah, so it's a weird situation. And this is probably all we're ever going to get out of this situation. Maybe in a couple years, you'll hear one of the other guys who quit say a little bit more, kind of elaborate a little bit more on why this happened. But as it stands right now, we're probably if something else comes out, we'll definitely be talking about it, but that's what we got, and that's probably all we're going to have to work with. So moving right along to our other big update follow-up this episode, and that is the Devil Driver situation. We have Des Fafara, if you'll remember, had to cancel a couple of tours actually, because he's been going through, actually it was a tour and then a couple of festival dates, but still, because he had some mystery ailment. Well, he has come out and given us an update, and that update is, whatever it is, it's not going to kill me. It still sounds like he's going through a battery of tests, and the doctors aren't fully sure what is going on with him, but it sounds like there's like an extreme case of vertigo and a couple other things that are kind of contributing to it that need to be taken care of. But he has reassured the fans that it's not going to be the end of Devil Driver. It's not going to be the end of Coal Chamber. That was the tour that got canceled, was the Coal Chamber tour, not the Devil Driver tour. But either way, it's fairly significant in that this is the first update we've got since he's been out of the hospital, basically. So pretty awesome. That is all we have though for that. So let's move into new music section. We have some interesting stuff going on for the new music videos. I wanted to, but I didn't get it in here. The Pet Cemetery cover by Unto Others is worth a listen, so go check it out, but we're not going to get into that one necessarily. We are going to get into something rather similar, and our first actual piece for new music is Neon Nightmare has released another track called They Look Like Shadows. This is significant for a number of reasons. A, just because it's great, and like if you are really trying to get that goth metal itch scratched, then damn if Neon Nightmare is not going to be the one to do it. But also, the record has come out. The full record called Faded Dream is out now, so you can go stream it, download it, buy it, whatever. Try and find a physical copy of it somewhere, which I don't know if those exist really. But we also get the reveal of who the hell is Neon Nightmare, because up until this point, it's kind of been, this is a really cool band that sounds a hell of a lot like Typo Negative, but like no announcement as to who's putting this music out aside from the $20 production that put up the money or is distributing the album or whatever the contract is. He credits them in all of the videos. It is one single guy. His name is Nate Garrett. You'll probably recognize that name if you are a fan of the band Spirit Adrift. Yeah, the $20 Spin. Yeah, that's the name of the company. But oh, so I guess I'm getting differing information, because it sounds like the album is available for pre-order now, not exactly out now. But there is a link for the pre-order down in the description. Sorry, mixing my signals. But the song specifically, They Look Like Shadows. Again, more goth Typo Negative stuff that is. While on one hand it is pretty derivative of the more gothy side of Typo, like Typo's not doing that anymore, so I'm okay with it. Like, a lot of people who are into this band are definitely okay with, like, it's obvious that he's doing a Peter Steele impression, but like, so it's good enough that like you can look past the derivative nature and just enjoy the really great music. So again, if you're looking to scratch that goth metal itch, Neon Nightmare's new track, They Look Like Shadows, is worth a listen. 100%, and also pre-order the record, link in the description. Our next band for new music, our next track, I guess, is from a band called Molotov Solution. The name of the song is Devour the Children. So Molotov Solution was apparently a thing in the earlier days of the deathcore movement before I really got into it. Back in 2011 was the last time they released music, so it's been about 13 years. They have a new record coming out by the same name as this track, so this is the title track, Devour the Children. And this is, for being an OG band, like this is more of a prime example of how the genre shines. And like legitimately, this is an invigorating track. And it's not just a hammer over the head the whole time. It's not just bludgeoning you. There are a lot of really great dynamics here that really make this super interesting to listen to. So if you, I don't know, if you're into heavy music and you haven't really gotten into deathcore yet, this is a pretty great place to start. I would honestly suggest maybe Job for a Cowboy to begin with, but if you just want to jump into something right now that doesn't take a lot of parsing through, Molotov Solution is friggin' fantastic. And yeah, this new track, Devour the Children, very dark. The video, incredibly dark and kind of frightening, honestly, plays out like a horror movie as well. This one more of a modern horror movie, where the Neon Nightmare track was much more of an 80s horror movie, but still, yeah. Deathcore is a genre that is definitely put some deep roots in, and these guys are part of that base stock, and for good reason. This is quality stuff. Go check it out. Switching gears a little bit, once again, we're going to an actual 80s band. The band is Extreme. You'll remember them for a number of reasons. The biggest of which, and kind of where we're going to draw a lot of parallels here, is for their song More Than Words. This new song is called Small Town Beautiful. There is another sound that these guys have. They are an 80s kind of glam, maybe not glam, but like that kind of 80s metal sound, the really polished, really verb heavy kind of sound. That is what Extreme did aside from More Than Words, which More Than Words was, I think, in the 90s even. So there's that. But this is, again, kind of revisiting the sound that they created with that More Than Words track, and kind of trying to rekindle whatever magic they had. And it's gonna work. Like, this is a solidly written, very well produced track that when it gets played on radio, probably terrestrial radio considering the target audience, but when it gets played on the radio, everyone's gonna love it. I don't imagine this is going to drive a whole lot of album sales, but I don't know that Extreme really has crazy album sales these days anyway. But like, this might get them back into the modern conversation for kind of throwback rock stuff. A lot of the bands that start up in that kind of subgenre of heavy metal, rock, whatever, don't really last super long. See Hinder, see Theory for a Dead Man. That kind of stuff just doesn't really stick around. But Extreme's been around since the 80s, and they've been pretty good with their staying power. So yeah, definitely worth a listen. It's a really good ballad. Like, just when was the last time we got one of those? So go check out Small Town Beautiful from Extreme, with the caveat of it's from a metal band that it's not really a metal song. But anyway, let's move right along, shall we? And then jumping right back into the heavy stuff, we have a band that I hadn't heard of previously called No Cure. The track is called Don't Need Your Help. And these guys just signed to Sharptone Records. Sharptone Records is the same record label that has signed Bleeding Through, whom we've talked about a number of times on this channel. And these guys are at home at the shoulders of the dudes in Bleeding Through, because wow, this is a crushing track. This is so much fun. I don't even know where to start that we're going to be able to do in these real quick little segments that we do for these tracks, that like just all over the place with the good and the great. There are a couple of guest vocals on here from Jesse Clark from Wielded Steel and Nick Chance of Beautiful Child of God. But it runs this really interesting gamut of vocals, obviously, because you have three different vocalists. You have the vocalist for the band No Cure, and then those other two we just listed, and just really prime example of kind of the way to do this. Like, it's not even modern metalcore. It's got this weird, it's not deathcore necessarily, it's somewhere around that area with a little bit of proper death metal thrown in. Like, this is hard to quantify in subgenre, but also great to listen to. So go check out No Cure, Don't Need Your Help. And then our final track for new music this week, we have a new band with very familiar faces. We'll say that. The name of the band is Paradise Slaves. The name of the track that they just released is A Fever to Defeat. You are going to recognize the voice on this track because it is, where's his name? Brock Lindau from 36 Crazy Fists, who apparently aren't around anymore, which kind of was news to me, but I guess I hadn't heard anything from them for a while, so it makes sense. Either way, Brock Lindau. And on guitars, you have the little brother of Joel Streutzel. Tyler Streutzel is his name. Joel Streutzel, if you don't know who that is, he is the lead guitar player, not the goofy one, but the lead guy who does a lot of the really tasty licks in Killswitch Engage. Every now and then has a crazy mane of hair or a giant beard, or I think right now he's got a mohawk. He's the other one. He's the quiet one in KSE. But Tyler, I guess, learns a thing or two from his brother, because there is some really interesting riffage going on in this track. The comparisons to 36 Crazy Fists are going to happen because that you have Brock. I mean, there's no way around that. But I think they end at the tone of his voice, because this is not hardcore. This is kind of like butt rock, instrumentally speaking, even though not really. It's just, I don't know, this is going to be for a small, no, how do we say this kindly? It's not going to be for general people who really like metalcore and hardcore, which is where Tyler's brother Joel comes from, and also where Brock Lindau comes from. It's not that sound. This is definitely a lighter metal sound. I wouldn't necessarily go so far as to call it just hard rock, but it kind of straddles that line. And it's okay. It's definitely not what I was expecting when reading the players involved, because there's a couple other dudes from Diecast in here, which is Tyler's other band, I guess. And it's so that, again, you would expect something a little more hardcore, and this is a lot more melodic driven. This is just a lot different than you might be expecting, and for that reason, it is, again, a recommendation. I don't think we had a bad song in the new music this week, so that's what we got. Let's move into tours and festivals. So, lineups this week for tours and festivals. We have Judas Priest has announced a 12-date trek through Europe. It kicks off June 14th in Oslo, Norway, and concludes on July 20th in Oberhausen, Germany. If you go to their website, you can probably find ticket links, because I couldn't find a pre-sale, because usually pre-sales are only in the States. So, I mean, it is what it is, but go check out the Judas Priest website if you're looking for tickets, and that's the way you're going to find them. The link in the description is going to take you to the announcement for the tour that is not necessarily on the website. Next up on tours, we have another European tour, and it comes from Slipknot, continuing this throwback tour that it seems that they're doing. Hopefully they announce another American leg after the European leg. But we have June 4th in Sweden through June 28th in Spain, ends on Resurrection Fest in Spain on the 28th of June. So again, go to Slipknot's website in order to get tickets, because pre-sales don't really exist unless you're in the States. So our final one is kind of a festival of sorts. It's the Headbangers Boat Tour. 2025 lineup has been announced. You can find tickets if you follow the link in the description. A little bit expensive because it is a, cruise. So very noteworthy. Obviously it's Lamb of God, because that's who puts it on every year. But also Devil Driver has signed on for this. So hopefully Dez has got all of his stuff figured out by then. And again, we have another lineup with Kubla Khan on it, because these dudes are going everywhere. They're doing every show, and they're going to be on every tour. So yeah, Kubla Khan. We also have Fear Factory and Obituary and Clutch. Man, if I didn't think a cruise was a waste of time, I would be all over this. But if you don't agree with me on that waste of time comment, again, link in the description will take you to tickets. Go get yours, because this sells out every year. This is the third year they're doing it, and they sold out the last 2 years. So that is what we have for tours and festivals. Let's talk about some new music, shall we? Some regular ass news. We already did the new music. Regular ass news. This week we got to start with a really crummy piece, because Quincy Jones has passed. Quincy Jones is one of the most celebrated musicians in music, just throughout the however many, like he's been around since the 60s, I want to say. He passed at the age of 91. The cause of his passing was not disclosed. He did die at his home in California, surrounded by family, and just a kind of a huge day in the music world because a titan has been lost. So let's take a moment and do some remembrance of Quincy Jones.
How you doing? Snoop Dogg is here, and he'll be singing your music later. Is that right?
I saw him here.
Yeah.
He's St. Louis brother.
Is that right? How long have you known him?
Long time. Before electricity.
Wow, that is a long time.
No, I love Snoop Dogg. I used to live in St. Louis a little bit when I was young.
Yeah.
My grandmother, so he's a beautiful man.
Is that where you were born in St. Louis?
Oh, Chicago.
In Chicago.
Yeah.
And what did you do as a kid in Chicago?
My father was a carpenter for the most notorious black gangsters in Chicago, the Jones Boys. And I wanted to be a gangster all my life. Mm-hmm. All I saw were dead bodies and machine guns and stogies in the 30s.
Really?
And piles of money. All my life till I was 10 years old, you know.
Yeah.
And then Capone ran that gang out of town because they made too much money. And to Mexico, and my father got my brother out of the barber shop and took us on a trailway bus to the Northwest. And we broke in an army. We were gangsters out there too at 11 years old. Broke into an army, eating pies, and saw a piano, and I went back to that piano. I knew I'd do that the rest of my life.
Is that right? At 11 years old.
Okay, let's bring things up. We have a couple of quick regular-ass news pieces. Both of them are basically the same for different bands. The first band is Killswitch Engage, has announced that there will be a new song released at the end of this month, November 20th, so not quite the end, but pretty close. November 20th is going to be the release of a new Killswitch Engage song called The Consequence from their forthcoming record, which they haven't released the title for yet, but it is going to be out sometime in 2025. That's what we got for that piece. Next up is basically, again, the same thing, but for Shadows Fall this time, which I'm slightly more hyped for because it's been, what, almost a decade since we've got new Shadows Fall music. But we have new Shadows Fall. They have promised that they will be dropping a new track in December. No word yet on the progress of the record that they are also currently working on, but I'm sure once we get closer to that track, we'll have a little bit more information, so we'll talk about it then. But that's what we got for Shadows Fall. Let's move. We have another quick one, but for different reasons. Slipknot has supposedly redesigned their Tribal S logo, which is weird because if you're paying attention to metal music news, like a lot of coverage has been given recently to Sean and his remembrance of Joey and Paul, and that's significant because Joey is the one who designed the original Tribal S logo. So they have released this new logo that is not really an S and not really tribal, but also kind of like a small child was trying to do their interpretation of a Tribal S. It is a thing. So there are some people who are like, oh, I can't believe it. No, legit, this is something that they have released. However, there is a giant caveat to that, and that is it's not the new Tribal S design. This is only on a limited amount of merch, limited volume of merch even. They designed a couple of pieces in small number, very specifically with this weird S thing on the back. And the rest of the line that is not limited, that is going to continue for a while, has the traditional Tribal S on it. So they're not changing their logo. They're just experimenting with other things, and I don't know, they're probably going to be sitting on a backstock of things that have that weird S on it for a while because it hasn't been going over very well with the fans because it looks kind of silly. So that's what we got for that one. Our next one is, oh man, this is also kind of in the same vein as the Killswitch Engage and Shadows Fall thing, but to a different degree. Limp Bizkit has announced that has made it very, very clear. I don't know if that was necessarily an announcement, but has made it very clear through social media and things that they are currently in the studio working on a new record. And the biggest things coming from around that, I'm sorry, I'm totally stumbling over my words for this piece, but the most information around that status of them being in the studio has come from drummer John Otto. And I just want to take a moment and give shout out to Mr. John Otto, the human drum machine. Dude has lost a bunch of weight and is in incredible shape right now. The last time I saw them live, he was a bit of a chunker. He was chonky boy for sure, and now he looks like he did back in the early 2000s, and I am super happy for you, Mr. John Otto. I'm super happy that we're going to be getting new Limp Bizkit music less than a decade after the release of the last record, so there's that. But also props to John for doing the thing and getting healthy again. I'm super happy to see it. That means we're going to get many years of Limp Bizkit music, and I cannot wait. That, though, is what we have for our regular ass news section. So now that leaves only our suggestion for music this week. And the suggestion is not exactly new music. It is a podcast. And specifically, it is the Iron Never Lies podcast. This is a podcast that is put on by Brandon Schappetti from Bleeding Through. He's the vocalist. He also runs a gym out in California, and he interviews other vocalists of other bands in like hardcore and metalcore bands. And it's just incredibly fascinating, intriguing, all of these wonderful things. Being a little bit fitness-minded myself, it's really kind of funny to critique their form when they are doing the lifting, because they do lift while they're doing the interviews. But like, it's really cool. It's a different kind of element for some of these vocalists or some of these musicians, I guess is more appropriate, that you wouldn't normally otherwise get. So the first episode is Matt, M Shadows, I'm sorry. M Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold. Second episode is Jose Mangan, the metal ambassador from Sirius XM Radio. He's the lead DJ and program director for Liquid Metal and Octane. And also the third episode is Alex Varkatsis, formerly of Atreyu, now Dead Icarus. So you get some really interesting angles into what's going on behind the scenes with these guys. They are 6 episodes deep now. I am a couple episodes behind on it, but it is absolutely a fun listen. Even if you're not watching the episodes so you can critique them, just listening to these interviews is incredibly informative and great if you are nerdy about the behind the scenes stuff with some of your favorite bands. So go check it out. That is your suggestion in music this week. In gaming and tech this week, we have Amazon and Netflix both succumbing just a little bit more to AI. We're going to talk about that. And then Max is going to be tying in major gaming franchise with one of their major streaming series franchise that it's a little convoluted. Let's do this. All right, so follow-up. We just got the one. We're just going to call the one a follow-up. We're going to call the other one a news piece, even though they're kind of similar in a way. So the follow-up one is Netflix. Netflix, if you remember last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, we were talking about the fact that Netflix had a gaming studio. They were going to do Netflix games, and it was a AAA gaming studio. And they had some alums from companies that gave us Halo, and I honestly am blanking on the rest, but like some really big, there were some Ubisoft folk that were hired on. There was really big name developer types that had worked for crazy large companies and very noteworthy IPs, so they could make a big statement and stepping into the industry, into the space, right? And then they closed it, and so there's no longer going to be a AAA gaming studio from Netflix. But that's the piece we already talked about. The new piece is AI related, and it's going to be generative AI games. They're opening a new company, they're opening a new sub corporation, whatever, under the Netflix umbrella, after closing the AAA game studio and opening an AI game studio. Really, this is the direction that we're going in the industry. I don't see this panning out well, at least not in the immediate future, and hopefully not in the long-term future either, but who knows. Then let's kick over into regular ass news. We got a couple of pieces. We're going to start with, again, another AI piece. This time it's Amazon doing the AI thing. Amazon will now include AI generated synopses and recaps and summaries 4 shows on the platform. They're going to start with Amazon MGM branded shows, but then they're going to go into basically all of the other shows on the platform. And they swear that there's not going to be spoilers in these recaps. So if you care about such things, then you should hopefully not be disappointed. But like, really, how are you going to get the AI to not hallucinate, A, and B, not accidentally give away something that people didn't want to find? Like, there's so much wrong with this that it's going to suck, and they're going to have to work out the bugs over the course of honestly, the rate AI is moving right now, probably it'll just be a few months, but like, it's going to be a very long few months. That's what we got for Amazon. Let's move into, our biggest piece for this section has to do with Hogwarts Legacy. So this one's very, very interesting. Hogwarts Legacy, there's been 2 fairly big announcements in the franchise. First of all, there's going to be a sequel to Hogwarts Legacy. So it was the biggest thing that released last year. Like, of course we're going to see a sequel to this game. That was kind of a given, right? But there's a really big addition to the announcement of a sequel. We're also going to be getting tie-ins from the Hogwarts Legacy sequel game into the HBO Max, or Max, I guess, Harry Potter series that's going to be launching sometime next year, presumably. Actually, it'll probably be towards the end of next year, if it's next year at all, because they haven't begun production or anything on it just yet. So we know that that is coming, and now we know that it's going to tie in. But the interesting, the disconnect, I think, for me, for this is the Hogwarts Legacy game takes place like 100 years before the events of the books. So how are we going to tie that into the events of the books? Because the retelling, the Max series, I keep wanting to call it HBO Max because that just sounds better. The Max series is going to be just another reinterpretation of the books. So if the game takes place 100 years or so before the events of the books, how do we tie that into the events of the books for the series on Max? Like, I don't know. It's going to happen, but we don't know how. So that's what we got. We'll keep tabs on it. Let's move on. Our next one technically is Mass Effect, but is also Dragon Age Veilguard. Dragon Age Veilguard is not getting DLC because BioWare has given up on it. It's been, honestly, no. The announcement is that BioWare is done with Dragon Age. There will be like balance patches or whatever, what have you, things to fix, and they're mostly turning their attention over to Mass Effect 5. So if you're not happy with Veilguard, you're going to continue to not be happy because they're not going to do anything to fix the gameplay, it would seem. Just kind of maybe fix bugs and then focus on Mass Effect, and hopefully they can do a little bit better on Mass Effect than they do with Dragon Age. But that's what we got for regular ass news in gaming and tech. Suggestion this week, obviously I'm still playing Mortal Kombat. So once again, I'm going to turn it over to you. Is there something else that I should be playing right now? I know that there's a couple of fighting games I've been looking to get into, specifically Tekken 8, because oh my god, that looks like so much fun. I just haven't pulled the trigger and bought it yet. So I know that that's a thing. There were a couple, like Uni is one that keeps getting suggested to me. I'll have to check that out at some point. We might actually be doing a little bit more of this, diving into other games for the off season on the live shows, because we end every live show with a little bit of gaming action. So that's kind of where we're at. So suggestion is, if you're not playing Mortal Kombat 1, you probably should be, because it's an incredible amount of fun, and that's all I've been playing, so give me something else to play. Let's go. Comic Books and Books, going to be a quick section this week. We basically have a couple of updates from Mike Barron and Joe Hill. That's what we're looking at, so let's get into it. We have no follow-ups. We have no corrections. We have very little to talk about in comics this week. We do have regular ass news, and it's a couple of quick pieces. First 2 pieces are both Mike Barron books. Not because I have any sort of certain affinity for Mike Barron necessarily. I mean, he's a good writer, but he's just got 2 new books that are being crowdfunded right now. So let's talk about them. The first one sounds like it's more of an original. Mike Barron is Calico. The other writer, because it's going to be a double issue, Kickstarter goes live November 12th. It's going to be a double issue. There's going to be a second writer on the project called H.H. German. Second writer is going to be writing the secondary plot for the book. I did not see who the artist was going to be, but looks like, I mean, just judging by the art, it looks like superhero a la Black Panther, but through the lens of Mike Barron's interesting interpretation of the world, which is honestly really good stuff. I've interviewed man a couple of times, and he's an incredibly eccentric dude, but in like so many of the best ways. He's a hell of a lot of fun to talk to, and a really good guy. The other Mike Barron book this week is a Sherlock Holmes book, which I'm kind of intrigued by. Sherlock Holmes Leviathan is the name of this book. It is currently, the crowdfunding is open. There's an Indiegogo, there's Kickstarter. Link down in the description is for the Indiegogo. It's going to, the crowdfunding ends January 3rd for this book. The art is going to be from Richard Bonk, which the art has a really like extraordinary gentleman kind of feel to it. So yeah, it's really, really cool. Again, Mike Barron's a pretty good writer. Go check it out. If you're interested, maybe kick into the crowdfund and get your issues through the crowdfund. And then our other piece of news for this episode is Ushers is a new short story from Joe Hill. Just came out the 4th, so 2 days ago. And yeah, new Joe Hill short story. Just Joe Hill, like, go check it out. This is an actual book too, so like we're actually not just talking comic books this week, even though there's only 3 pieces to talk about. That's all we've got for regular ass news. Let's talk about your suggestion this week. Suggestion is, because the Penguin is doing so great over on Max, and if you're not watching it, you should be. There is a book that we should say slightly informed the most recent episode of Penguin, and that is Penguin, Pain and Prejudice. Came out in 2011. Greg Hurwitz is the writer. It is fairly well regarded as far as DC from around that time is concerned. And again, if you're really digging the Penguin right now, this is going to be the genesis for the most recent. Like, it's just, go check it out. There's, if I give you too much about it, I'm going to either spoil the book or the most recent episode of the show. So just go read it. That is your suggestion this week for comics. In TV streaming, we have a fairly unexpected, though still significant, update on the Gen V situation. Star Wars dropped a trailer for a new series that we gotta get into at least a little bit. And Walking Dead Daryl Dixon already has a trailer for season 3. And then a little bit more, so let's go. Okay, follow-ups in TV streaming. We have a big one. This was kind of our big lead for the section, right? It's Gen V. Season 2 for Gen V. When last we checked in on this, they were still trying to figure out how they were going to move forward after the death of one of their main actors. And now they're done with principal photography. They have wrapped on principal photography for season 2. So we are not that far away from getting the second season of Gen V, which is super exciting and also super interesting to see exactly what they decided to do to write out. I'm going to brain fart his name because I didn't put it in the notes, because, say it with me, class, I take amazing notes. That's right. But yeah, so set to be released in the year of 2025. That's all we know for certain. As once the release window narrows down, we'll talk about it and we'll do more follow-ups and stuff, but let's move right along. We have another casting thing going on with Lanterns. We got Garrett Dillahunt has been cast in the series for Lanterns over on Max. I mean, you're going to recognize his face. He's kind of a character actor that's done a lot of things. So that's what we got. Let's move on. Now let's get into trailers, and this is our other big one, I think, for the episode. It is Star Wars Skeleton Crew trailer. This is, honestly, I might have this in the wrong section. I think it might be, I'm pretty sure it's a series. I can't remember. That's why I put it in the TV stuff. I'm pretty sure they're billing it as a series though, and not as a movie. So if it is a series, or if it is a movie rather, and not a series, please someone admonish me hard in the comment section, because I feel really stupid for not remembering whatever. But we do have a trailer for it either way, so we get to see where they're going with this. Now, I've heard a fair amount of criticism about this trailer because it seemed the opinion of some is that it seems lazy because they're basically just filming it in California in like real world areas and then doing minimal amounts of post in order to make it look like it's otherworldly, right? That it belongs to Star Wars. And I can see how that might be a little bit of an issue. And also people are taking issue with the apparent feel of this series, again, I'm going with series because I'm dumb, but they're criticizing the general feel of this because it feels derivative of like the Goonies, or I forget the other comparisons that it's drawing, but Goonies is a big one. And why is that bad? Like, I'm failing to see the issues. Like, yeah, some of the shots look like they could be just lifted out of some generic B-roll from that was shot in the state of California somewhere, Southern California specifically. But like, we're being critical of Disney for doing these things and spending all of this money on something that we don't care about, that isn't good, right? So that's been a constant criticism, is that Disney is just not doing good things with these properties that we love. And then when they go take measures to cut down budgets like this, obviously that's what they're doing. They're keeping the digital stuff to a minimum in those shots where it's obviously shot on the streets of somewhere in Burbank, California or something like that. We're critical of that. And then when we say that the Star Wars is not supposed to be so dark all the time like they've been trying to do with their series of late, and now we have something that is very obviously lighthearted and is kind of geared towards kids. I would say largely geared towards children, which is kind of how Star Wars began, right? It was supposed to be a family movie. It wasn't supposed to be this dark, brooding thing that it became in the last couple movies. So now that we're getting that again, we're going to be critical of that too. Like, yeah, the tone feels a little Steven Spielberg Goonies, sure, but the Goonies is a very highly regarded movie in the nerd community. So if the biggest complaint about this is that it feels a little bit like the Goonies, I'm going to call that a win. I'm going to say that is a good direction to be heading in, because then at least we care. Then at least we want to watch the damn thing. And we're not, and I don't understand this criticism culture that we live in, where everything needs to be gone through with a fine-tooth comb and then torn apart because it doesn't fit exactly with what we were expecting. Now, when it's something like The Acolyte that is obviously breaking mythology that has previously been established, yes, let's pick that apart and expose it to the light like we should. But when it's something like this that obviously isn't going to be like The Acolyte, then let's just see where it goes. Give it a second to breathe, and then we'll start to pick through it and see exactly if it holds up to scrutiny. And it doesn't have to hold up to the same level of scrutiny because it's going to be unrelated to the other things that we've already got. So, like, I think this is a fairly safe play, but also a good play on the part of Disney as it pertains to Star Wars. So that is my little soapbox. I'm going to step down now. The show begins December 3rd. Another interesting criticism, and this is one that I legitimately gave it to, is the music in this trailer. The Major Tom, it's not the David Bowie one. It's the one that's supposed to be the sequel to the David Bowie song. I can't remember exactly who wrote it, but it's that song. They just changed the language into, I believe that's Hutt-ese. That was kind of a weird choice, but otherwise, December 3rd is when it starts. Let's move into our next trailer. This is an interesting one because it is Daryl Dixon, which season 2 literally just ended. And we already have a trailer for season 3, and they're going to Spain, and we see Carol and Daryl in Spain. It is a very short, like, teaser trailer, but still, we have footage from season 3 already. I'm stoked. I haven't watched the final episode of season 2 yet, but super excited for this. Yeah, go check it out. Link in the description for all of these. And then we have another trailer. This one is a new Taylor Sheridan series. We've talked about it previously. Landman. November 17th on Paramount Plus is when this one starts, so very, very soon. Taylor Sheridan, obviously the guy that brought us Yellowstone, and then all of the spin-off series from Yellowstone, and then King of Tulsa. Also going to be featuring, starring presumably, Billy Bob Thornton, Demi Moore, and John Hamm in this series. So yeah, excited, interested. Let's watch. That's what we got for trailers. We have no regular ass news this week. We only have our suggestion. So suggestion this week is going to be another revisit to The Penguin. We have one episode left in the one season that we're going to get for The Penguin. So there's a lot of loose ends that they're going to have to tie up, and I'm super intrigued in how they're going to do that, because like we need to see things that we need from Penguin by the end of episode 8 for The Penguin is we need to see Oswald be the big mafia boss. Like, he doesn't have to be well established. He just has to be the only option. Also, are they going to kill off Sophia? Because I feel like Sophia Gigante, when she becomes Sophia Gigante, this is Falcone Gigante in the books, I don't think she dies. I think she's just kind of, she comes back when it's convenient for whoever's writing the book. So are they going to kill her off in the series, or are they going to give maybe her a spin-off show? Are they going to maybe bring her into the new Batman movies? Like, there's so many questions about what's going on. What the hell's going on with Vic? Is Vic going to actually become Victor Zsasz? I don't think that's the case, but there are a lot of people who are asking that question. So like, let's get all of these loose ends wrapped up, maybe leave a little string into the next Batman movie, and that's where we're at. It's super good though. Like, the first couple times we talked about this was Colin Farrell, and the makeup. And now let's talk about Sophia and the Christina Maloney, I think is her actual name. Milotti? Just Kristen Milotti. Kristen, yeah. She's like, she can hold her own. And then the lady who plays Penguin's mom also is doing an incredible job. Like, this is just an actor's tour de force. Juice, maybe not so much a great actor, but still sufficing in the role that he has been put in this show. I don't remember the actor's name. I just remember he played Juice in Sons of Anarchy, but like, this show just won't stop being great. So you should be watching it. That is your suggestion for TV this week.
Subscribe. That is all.
Movie section is a little weird and also fairly large considering, but we have a new live action series of Lego movies. That's right, Lego movies in live action. I don't know how that's gonna work. Pinocchio horror movie gets a pretty cool casting update, and new Godzilla movie announced that is very exciting as well. This is going to be probably our most entertaining of the sections this week, so let's go. Follow-ups, corrections for movies. First up is a real quick one. Kraven the Hunter. Tickets go on sale November 29th. So if you are interested in seeing what the hell else Sony has got up their sleeve, now that Venom is presumably done, then November 29th is going to be the day to get your tickets. Let's move into the next piece though, because that one's just real quick. We have Pinocchio Unstrung. We now know the title, the full proper title to the Pinocchio horror movie. It's going to be the next one in the Twisted Childhood universe. We also know some casting for the movie now. Robert Englund has been cast in an undisclosed role, so intriguing. And then Richard Brake has been cast as Geppetto. We got some production images for this as well that look pretty dang awesome. I'm not gonna lie, super intrigued by what's gonna happen here. I just finally watched Blood and Honey 2, and gotta be honest, I think I liked the first one a little bit better, specifically just because I think the character design was a little bit better in the first one, but I'd say it's gonna go on and be huge. It's going to be very popular with horror movie types because it's a gore fest, and that's kind of, if you're looking for a throwback horror slashers type thing, then Blood and Honey's the way to go. So yeah, very interested to see what they do with Pinocchio, but that's what we got on that. Let's move over to our next one. And this is a follow-up. Technically, this is a follow-up for a movie we've been talking about for years. It was announced all the way back in 2017, so 7 years is when we've been talking, as how long we've been talking about this. This is George A. Romero's final zombie movie called Twilight of the Dead. We now know that there is still progress being made on the movie. Obviously, George A. Romero is no longer with us, but his wife, where'd her name go? But his wife, Suzanne Romero, has been working with the screenwriters who were working with George before he passed, Joe Netter, Robert L. Lucas, and Paolo Zalotti. They've been working on the script, and now we have some casting for the movie as well. We have Mila Jovovich and Betty Gabriel have both been cast for the film. The director for it is going to be Brad Anderson, who did that Session 9 movie. Pretty sure I used that as a recommendation at the end of August. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it, but it's pretty good. So interested to see what's going on there. Brad Anderson does do some pretty good work on very low budgets, and that's kind of the hallmark of the Dead franchise with George Romero, right? So yeah, interesting. Actually moving forward, actually going to be making some progress, hopefully moving into principal photography soon, though that has not been made clear. So since we have nothing else, we're going to move into trailers this week. We got some really interesting ones. I believe all of these are horror movies, honestly, which kind of makes sense because October did just end. So first one on the list is Do Not Open. It's a new horror movie about the dangers of tech, super original, but it seems like it's going to be at least a fresh take on, maybe not the most original take on the idea of tech as the bad guy, but still a fresh take on it, because the trailer at least does enough to get you interested in watching the movie, which is the point of a trailer. So there you go. Our next trailer is a movie called Heart Eyes, new Valentine's Day themed horror movie from the director of, or I'm sorry, from the studio that brought us Freaky, not Freaky Friday, Freaky, the one with Vince Vaughn, where Vince Vaughn's the killer who changes brains with the teenage heroine girl, whatever. So Freaky and Happy Death Day. That's the studio that's bringing this to us. February 7th, 2025. This is going to be a rated R movie. The trailer that is linked in the description is the Red Band trailer, so be aware if you're watching it somewhere where that might not go over so well, then know that it is a gory, blood-soaked trailer, and this movie is not going to play it safe like you might expect from a Valentine's Day themed horror movie. It's going to go there, and it's pretty intense. I'm kind of excited about it, not gonna lie. Heart Eyes is that one. And then our other trailer this week is a new horror movie from Steven Soderbergh called Presence. This one, the trailer again does a fantastic job of creating interest like a trailer should. The really noteworthy thing about this trailer is, it's honestly kind of two things. One is that it doesn't give you a lot of the movie. It doesn't seem to, at least, give anything away in this trailer. It's fairly short, so that's easy, but still does the purpose of that, but also definitely sets up an atmosphere that is really chilling. So super excited about this. Steven Soderbergh does good stuff. January 24th is the release date for Presence, so really not that far away at this point. Just kind of, this one I'm kind of honestly anticipating. Like, of the three of these, honestly, I'll probably see Heart Eyes as well, but Presence is definitely going to be one I catch in theaters. I'll probably do the same for Heart Eyes. Anyway, that's what we've got for trailers this week. Let's talk about some regular ass news. The first piece is the kind of the big piece for the section, and that is Lego. The big one here is Lego Ninjago, but generally speaking, there's been announcements for, I believe, 3 separate live action Lego movies. And I think I might be misremembering. I think it might actually be 4, but I'm pretty sure it's at least 3. How do you do a live action Lego movie? How does that even work? Like, I'm at a freaking loss here, but the Ninjago movie specifically has the most information on it. We have Kevin and Dan Hagman, who are responsible for the Ninjago animated series. They're going to be writing and directing. It is going to be Universal. Universal's putting out all of the Lego movies, and that's really what we've got. Honestly, and I think there were director announcements for the other movies as well. I didn't write them down because the Ninjago one was the most complete. So that's what we got for Lego. Again, live action Lego. What the hell is that? Next up is Gundam. We have another live action. It's just all the live actions are happening, man. So we have another live action. Gundam is in the works. It's going to be Jim Mickle who will be writing and directing this one for Legendary and Bandai Namco Filmworks. This one makes a lot more sense to be in live action. This will be what Pacific Rim was trying to be, but couldn't because licensing things. And maybe Pacific Rim 2 shouldn't have happened, but that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, Gundam live action, that's what we got there. Let's move on. Speaking of things that are being adapted into live action, we have a video game adaptation. Oh, and that is House of the Dead is getting another adaptation. The first one doesn't necessarily count because I'm pretty sure it was a Uwe Boll movie, so not the greatest at all. And I think honestly there was a sequel to the first one as well, and just don't waste your time. If you like horror movies, that is not one you want to watch. Just saying. But House of the Dead is getting a new movie. This one is coming from none other than Paul W.S. Anderson. Paul Anderson has a little bit of a special place in my heart because he is the man responsible for the 1995 Mortal Kombat movie. Also, the first two movies in the Resident Evil franchise. Pretty sure it's both of them. At the very least, it's the first one. It might have been the second one. I might be misremembering that. He also did the Monster Hunter movie, so he has an affinity for Mila Jovovich. I think they're married, but whatever. He will also co-write the film. So I'm pretty sure he was co-writer on the 95 Mortal Kombat movie as well, so not necessarily a red flag at all, but the Resident Evil movies, maybe it's a little bit of a red flag. Anyway, super excited about this one just because I like zombie movies and I really, like I said, have an affinity for Paul W.S. Anderson. So that's what we got on that one. Next is another sequel. We have Orphan, third movie for the franchise, has been announced. Excuse me. Isabel Fuhrman, the star of the series, has been announced to be returning to play the titular Orphan. And the writer-director from the second movie, First Kill, David Coggeshall, and William Brent Bell, the writer and the director, will also be returning for the third movie. So at least if you liked the second one, then you will probably like the third one. From there, we have a real quick update. I guess we didn't really talk about this, which is why it didn't go into the follow-ups section, but this is a movie that's been out, so this is an addition to the existence of the movie. We now know that The Substance, starring Demi Moore, is going to be available. It's actually currently available for streaming only on Mubi, though. What the hell is Mubi? Like, I know what Movies is because I watch Kevin Smith movies, and I don't think they're related. Mubi is a streaming service. You can get a 7-day free trial period if you sign up through your Amazon Prime account, or you can just purchase the movie on Amazon Prime. From what I know, because I was unable to catch it in theaters, but from what I know of this movie, it might just be worth the purchase price. It will be about $20 if you purchase on Amazon. That's for the digital. I don't know if renting is an option. I honestly didn't look at my Prime before I came to film, but either way, you can purchase and possibly rent it on Prime. So go do that because it sounds like it's great. Anyway, moving on. Next one is another one of the big headlines, and that is Godzilla. Godzilla -1 is getting a sequel, kind of. We now know that Toho has greenlit a follow-up movie, if nothing else. It is going to be from the same director, Takahashi Yamazaki. This will be the 38th Godzilla movie in existence. Again, since it's the same director as Godzilla -1, the presumption is they're going to be related somehow, though it is a Toho movie, so that's not a requirement. We'll see what happens. We'll be keeping tabs as we got on that. It's a huge movie section, but it's not exactly the most detailed. It's a lot of kind of quick pieces. After Godzilla, we've got a cliffhanger. I don't know if we talked about this when it was originally announced, so that's why also this one didn't go into the follow-ups, even though technically it should be a follow-up. Cliffhanger, though, a reboot of the Sylvester Stallone movie, is in fact in the works. It was going to feature Sylvester Stallone in one of the lead roles as well, and then very recently, within the last week or so, Sylvester Stallone has pulled out of the project. In his place, they have cast Pierce Brosnan. What? So Pierce Brosnan is replacing Sylvester Stallone, okay, and Lily James is going to be the counterpart to Pierce Brosnan. Lily James is going to be playing the daughter of Brosnan's character, is the way it sounds like. The original movie came out in 1993, so we're starting to kind of scrape the bottom of the barrel, I feel like. Not that Cliffhanger was bad necessarily, but like really, we're rebooting that movie. Yeah, from there, that's what we got on that one. Our next one is Emily the Strange. This is a franchise that's been around for quite some time and is now getting a movie. Not a live action movie, so it's kind of breaking the trend for the episode. It is going to be an animated movie from WB Animation Studios, and Bad Robot is also going to be in on the production side of things. So J.J. Abrams' production company. Feature-length movie, Emily the Strange. That's all we really know. Let's move on to our final piece of regular ass news, and this one's pretty freaking exciting. If you are a fan of Daft Punk specifically, and or just EDM music in general, Daft Punk's Interstellar 5555, the movie counterpart to their Discovery record, is getting a theatrical release. It is going to be in theaters for 1 day and 1 day only. That 1 day is December 12th in 800 theaters worldwide. It is not going to be 800 theaters in the States. It's not going to be 800 theaters in France, where Daft Punk are from. But worldwide, all over the world, there's going to be a total of 800 theaters that are showing this on December 12th. So if you're a fan of the band or the group or whatever you want to call them, then you should be actively seeking out tickets. I was unable to find a list of cities where they were going to be featured in theaters. So if I can find that, I will try and link it down in the description. Or we'll talk about it next week ever so briefly in the follow-ups, but that is what we have for regular ass news this week. Let's get into our suggestion this week. Suggestion is a sequel to a Christmas movie, technically speaking, but it's Addams Family Values, because we are in Thanksgiving time, and Addams Family Values has Thanksgiving themes. We'll put it that way. This is the sequel, obviously, to the Addams Family. The Family Values movie came out in 93. The Addams Family movie came out in 91, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Just absolutely blast of a time. Barry Sonnenfeld did a fantastic job. Raul Julia is a national treasure, and he definitely left us far too soon. Christina Ricci as Wednesday is kind of the example to be set that Jenna Ortega tried to follow when she did the Wednesday in high school show. It wasn't college, it was high school, over on Netflix. Like, this is where the idea for that style of the character came from, is from this iteration of it. Addams Family Values, it is Thanksgiving, at least passively, and yeah, that is your suggestion for the week. Go watch Addams Family Values, because oh my god, why wouldn't you? All right, nerds, real quick, let's take a break. Let's talk energy, and not just any energy, Dubby Energy, channel partner, and it's my go-to for any time I don't want to get that sketchy sugar crash. So here's the deal. They have spent a lot of time fine-tuning their formula, packing it full of vitamins and nootropics and things that are meant to help with cognitive performance. And the star player in all of that is a thing they like to call the Neurofactor. And Neurofactor is a patented cocktail of ingredients, specifically using the caffeine derived from coffee cherries, and is clinically proven to help improve brain performance. I swear this stuff helps you stay laser focused, whether you're gaming or creating or grinding away on a project or just at the daily grind at your day job. Another thing that really sets W apart is the other ingredients. Besides just the Neurofactor, you have the sugar-free, 0 calories, no maltodextrin, and no artificial colors. All of that with 0 jitters and no crash, just smooth energy. And then just the icing on the cake is that Dubby is affordable as well. One 8-ounce serving, assuming you're using the promo code Generally Nerdy when you check out at dubby.gg, one 8-ounce serving is going to cost you right about $1.20, which means a full 16-ounce serving, which most of you are probably going to mix together, which is easily mixed in their shaker bottles, which are also available at dubby.gg. A 16-ounce portion is going to cost you right about $2.40. Now compare that to $4 from the other guys, and you see that you're saving money on top of helping with your focus and your brain function. If you want to give it a try, just use the promo code Generally Nerdy at checkout. You can follow the link down in the description. We are back down to 10%. All through September we were getting 20%, but now that it is October, we're down to 10% off, which is you're still doing $1.20 per serving. So 10% off at checkout if you use code Generally Nerdy at dubby.gg. All of that being said, let's get back to the show, shall we?
It's classified.
And then rounding things out with the rumor mill, we have rumors that the Venom series over at Sony might not be done like we were thinking. Wolverine game rumored to be delayed for a very significant reason, actually. And then the Fantastic Four movie changed its title. Let's get into this. Confirmations, refutations. We have a confirmation. Technically, we probably should have done this one last week, though. I just wasn't paying attention to this series to know that it had properly been revealed. Maybe even 2 weeks ago. I don't know. I'm not watching Agatha. But Agatha all along, the silly show that's on the Disney Plus that technically is going to have some sort of significance in the MCU at large, but I don't know how significant of an impact. Aubrey Plaza's character is, in fact, Lady Death. It was revealed at some point in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So confirmation of rumor that we got months ago. Who cares? Let's move into our new rumors. We have no new sources for old rumors, just the new rumors to get to. First up is the big one, and it is Agent Venom. We have word to, and honestly, at this point, fairly moderately decent reason to believe that we're going to be getting an Agent Venom. That, though, is not where the rumor ends. The rumor then goes on to say not only are we getting an Agent Venom, but they are actively in some stage of production on the project. So, things that should be noted for this. It is not going to be Eddie Brock Venom. It's going to be Flash Thompson Venom. No idea who is supposedly going to be playing Flash Thompson, but then it elaborates even further. So we've got a lot of specificity with this one. Elaborates even further, goes into say that it is going to tie into not only a Sinister Six movie, which Sony has been talking about for some time, but also Scarlet Witch. And I think that's the biggest issue with this rumor. The Sinister Six movie has been on the back burner for a very significant amount of time at this point from Sony. So that part, sure, why wouldn't it? Because, you know, if they're going to do that, Venom's a good way to get that going. Scarlet Witch, though, there is very little, especially now that the Last Dance movie has been released, there is very little evidence or any sort of reason to believe that they are actually going to do crossover into the MCU with Venom at all. Scarlet Witch is MCU proper. Venom is the Sony Spider-less universe. These two universes are not going to cross paths in the near future at all, but very likely not ever, aside from the kind of minor crossing of paths at the end of Venom 2, I think it was. I can't remember. Either way, yeah, just that if not for this Scarlet Witch piece, this would be going a lot higher, a lot higher. But because it does say that there's going to be some sort of significance to the Scarlet Witch movie, that drops it down below half. This is unlikely to be the case, specifically because of that. I think there's a good, healthy dose of truth in the rest of it. But because of the Scarlet Witch thing, we're saying 40% likely that we're going to be seeing Agent Venom to this degree. Will we see Agent Venom? Sure. I think there's about a 50% likelihood that there will be an Agent Venom movie in the not so distant future. Are they currently working on it now? That's the other thing that kind of kills this. Is no, I don't think they are. I think they're kind of recouping, waiting to make sure that they recoup their cost for the Venom 3 movie before they move forward with the symbiote on a different actor, because Tom Hardy I think is probably the biggest draw for those movies to begin with. So now that he's not going to be moving forward with it, I think there's a lot at play there that they're going to not want to invest as much in, and so probably not currently moving forward with it yet. So again, 40%. Next up is Game of Thrones. This one is being kind of announced as fact at this point, but if anyone tries to tell you that this is in fact happening for sure 100%, they're not being honest with you. But we have rumor, and this is a very good source because it's in the trades at this point. We have rumor though that there is a movie that is going to be happening that takes place after the events of the Game of Thrones series. Said to be an extension of the Game of Thrones series. It is noteworthy that David Weiss and Benioff both were trying to push for the conclusion of their story in 3 parts in 3 movies. So the idea of a Game of Thrones movie has been kicking around for some time. Again, this is coming from the trades at this point. I think that the only reason I didn't go higher than I have on here is because it seems that everyone's pushing it so hard that maybe they're going to kill it in the hype. That the hype is just going to reach a fever pitch and then nobody's going to want to touch it. So we're going to say 80% likely that we are going to be seeing a Game of Thrones movie that is directly tied to the HBO series. Next up is a gaming rumor. This one is the Wolverine game. We have word that the new game from Insomniac is very likely going to be pushed back because they are going to be starting from scratch. The little bit of a tease that we got last year at the Game Awards, or was it the year before? I can't remember. I think it was last year. That little bit of a teaser is completely getting scrapped. Everything that was coming out of that is getting scrapped, and they're starting from ground zero because they want to go in a different creative direction. Now, there's been speculation based on this rumor as to why that is, why they would want to go in a different direction. The big speculation is that it was, I can't even remember the name of the company, or Sweet Baby related and DEI related. And now that things have changed in the American country, DEI seems no longer going to be something that is embraced by the gaming industry. Crossing fingers. So, since that apparently is the direction it was going, Insomniac has decided they want to go in a different direction. I think there's a fair amount here. Enough people are talking about this that are rumor types that it definitely makes sense. And it's a gaming rumor. And very rarely do I source poor gaming rumors. So we're gonna give this one about 95%. Technically though, since there wasn't a release date announced, the setback part isn't, you can't really verify that it's going to be delayed necessarily, but it is going to be a while longer before we see it because they're starting from scratch. So let's move next into a real quick one. This is a Tom Cruise rumor. Days of Thunder supposedly is going to be one of the movies on his slate. He's currently working on the second half of Mission Impossible 8. He is also currently working on the sequel to Top Gun Maverick, another sequel to a revival sequel, legacy sequel, whatever the hell you want to call it, to a movie that he did back in the 80s. Seems unlikely, but it's Tom Cruise, so who freaking knows? 50% likely on this one. I don't know. There's enough really to go on either side of this. We're going to split the difference. Next up is Fantastic Four. There is interesting reason to believe, though I don't think that it's accurate, that the subtitle for Fantastic Four, which is currently First Contact as it's been announced, is First Steps. I totally just did the thing. First Steps is the current subtitle. They're going to be changing it to First Contact is the rumor. This comes from one of the people that is part of the production. I don't remember if it's an actor posting. Somebody who is associated with the project has posted a resume on LinkedIn, and they have listed their involvement with this project as the title of the movie being Fantastic Four First Contact, not First Steps. I feel like that's probably a typo. That's probably, maybe he was putting his resume together with an AI and the AI screwed it up. Maybe, I don't know. There's any number of other reasons this could be a thing. I think, though, there is a slight chance that this is going to be happening, given some of the other rumors surrounding the Fantastic Four movie. It seems like if the Galactus rumors, any of those Galactus rumors are true, First Contact would be slightly more appropriate, which is the only reason we're going as high as we are. I still don't think this is accurate, but I'm going to say 35% likely that the subtitle for the Fantastic Four movie is going to change. If we can corroborate this from a better source, then I would say there's better likelihood. But right now, the only source I was able to get, because I don't have LinkedIn. I don't do that. So the only source I could get was one of the weaker sources that we use. Next is technically two different rumors, but they both are basically the same rumor for different Marvel characters and also come from the same place. So we're going to treat them as one, but the rumors are that Death and or Wiccan are going to be getting their own spin-off show from the Agatha show, which itself was a spin-off from WandaVision. I don't think that's happening at all. The ratings for Agatha were poor. They did get slightly better as we got closer to the end, but I think that was more out of morbid curiosity and not necessarily because people cared. So that's kind of why we went as high as we did, because the ratings did improve over time. Still, I'm pretty sure the ratings overall were less than The Acolyte, and The Acolyte got shit canned pretty quick, right? So yeah, I can't imagine that they're going forward with either of these. There is the possibility, though, because we are moving into a new era of Disney Plus, there is a possibility we see one-off episodes. And by one-off episodes, I mean pilot episodes for one or both of these properties. Will it go beyond a pilot? I doubt it. But there is a slightly better chance of seeing a pilot episode for these. So that again is kind of what brought us up out of the single digits for the likelihood for this one. So we're going to say 30% likely that there will be either a Death or a Wiccan spin-off series from Agatha. It seems slightly more likely that we'll get a single episode as a pilot that won't go anywhere. We'll check back. From there, though, speaking of Agatha, we now have a season 2 rumor. Agatha getting renewed for a season 2. This honestly probably could have been wrapped up into the Death and Wiccan stuff we just talked about, because it comes from the same source and it for the same reasons I can't get behind this. The first season did not do well enough for them to justify a second season. So I don't think this is legit. Again, kind of rehashing the same stuff. They did pick up in ratings towards the end of the series, or the season rather, so that kind of increases the possibility. Still not even halfway there, though. We're going to say 30% for this one as well. And then we have another Blade rumor. This one seems it's definitely a bad source, so you already know where that's going. But we now have rumor that if you look back at the MCU release date schedule, there are 2 movies in 2026 there are 2 release dates that don't have movies attached to them yet. One of them is in November and one of them is in December, if I'm remembering correctly. Well, according to this rumor, the Blade movie, which we have reason to believe is still moving forward in spite of the fact that the release date has been canned. It's been pulled. There is still reason to believe, though, that they're moving forward with production on it. They are said to be going into principal photography in 2025, in early 2025, if I'm remembering the rumor correctly. But that then this rumor says that 2026, the November date in 2026 is going to be the day that we get released. That's still far too close. From everything we know about why and all of the reasonable conjecture that we can come to as to why the Blade movie has been postponed to some degree, pushed back, shelved, whatever, says that it's going to be coming out after the multiverse saga comes to an end. So after Avengers Secret Wars, not after Doomsday, not between Doomsday and Secret Wars, after Secret Wars. So that puts it a full phase out, because Secret Wars is the end of the next phase. So that's not going to be 2026. 2026 we'll see the end of the multiverse phase, but then we got to go beyond that, right? So this one we're going to go about 40% likely, because it is possible. Dates move, things change. I just don't see this one moving forward like it is. That being said, we have no proper speculation to get into for this episode, so that brings us to the end of the rumor mill, nerds, and right into the housekeeping. This week's housekeeping, again, I'm going to reiterate, there will not be a That Just Happened episode, even though I have been watching some really interesting stuff, specifically from just keeps getting more and more confusing, and I don't understand how they're going to end this in an episode or two. Also, what was the other one? Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, the 2. Watch that. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, in one of the live shows, but not a proper That Just Happened episode. There will be one more shout out show. There will be another super cut, but that's kind of irrelevant to our purposes here. There will be one more shout out show though, and before the live shows start, it will be encompassing October, it will be September and October that will be encompassing. And then I'll try and get the shout outs together for live shows come December. But we have one more episode left, guys. This is the second to last regular season episode for the year. Next week will be the last episode, and then we'll be taking the remainder of the month of November off to a certain degree. I'll pre-film a couple of things, probably a couple of reaction videos, and I have a couple other ideas that maybe might not shake out like I'm thinking, but I'll try. And then we'll see you again first week of December with the live shows, as I am doing the behind the scenes stuff, getting ready for a new season. Also of note, the next season is going to be, we're going to have some new merch at the very, very least. I am committing myself to creating I'll do 5 new designs for sure. If anything beyond 5 is just going to be bonus, but we will do 5 new designs for merch. I have a really cool idea, I think, for merch stuff here on the channel, as it pertains to the kind of things we talk about and stuff. So keep your eyes open for that. Go check out the links down below for the merch stores as they exist now. And that's what we got for you this week. Thank you very much, nerds, for sticking around all the way to the end. If you did, I love your faces. We'll see you next week. Before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.